All right, here we are. That was maybe like the shortest starting screen ever.
I loved
Uh,
it.
Sim and I were just chatting away, and I didn't even realize the time going off the clock. I'm like, oh, we might want to actually go live and talk now.
That was probably my bad.
Nah, it's all good. It's fun to do these for me because I'm able to, like, always ask people to be here 30 minutes early. It almost always is more than enough time to, like, it took me, what, 2 minutes to get your camera and audio sorted, and then we
Yeah,
just kind
yeah.
of hung out and chatted the rest of the time. But yeah, better safe than sorry because then there are some weeks, like last week, when you have your technical difficulties and you need that 30 minutes all the way. What's up, everybody on YouTube? Farmer Klein says SFTN for the win. What's up,
Armor
J-Bot? What's up,
Klein.
Grizzly? Hello, Zico Mobile Brazil on Twitch as well. Yeah, so we have, as you see, Simulation for the Nation with me today. Giants partner, YouTuber. Most of you probably
Sure.
know him already. If you don't, well, you're about to find out about him. So we're glad you're here. It's going to be a fun time. So, first of all, introduce yourself, Sim.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to doing this. Yeah, I'm Sim, SFTN, Simulation for the Nation, any of the above. I'm British, live in Canada. I've been doing farm sim content now for, I think I got a reminder about my first video was 2017-ish, end of 2017, FS19 era. Uh, I predominantly focus on role play and do various different styles along the way there. I've been playing Farm Sim though for on and off from FS11, a little bit of FS13, and then
Nice.
really back into it with 15 throughout various different stages and locations where I've been with work. But yeah, so that's what I've been focused on. And then, like I say, FS17, 19, I thought, you know what? Let's give it a go. Let's try it. And like every content creator out there, you start with, I actually started on console.
A
Was my
lot of
first
ours
one
do.
on,
Yeah,
yeah, Culver Park Farm. Shout out to Bullet Bill there. That was my first little trial and error.
cool.
And that in Thornton Farm with Oxy. And it's one of those things that you start like I'll just do this quite small, and then you end up buying another thing, and then like another bit of equipment, and then another bit of hardware, and then suddenly you've got all these monitors in the room doing everything. But yeah, I love it, and it's I've slowly been building up a little community around that, and it's been great. And here we are, what, 5 and a bit years later, 6 years later, and it's life's gone away a little bit right now. It's slowed down. Content has stopped a bit, but as we were just discussing, I'm playing around making maps now and doing a bit of everything. So
Yeah,
I'm
that's exciting.
taking the full farm sim experience, going from one end to the other, and it's been great so far.
That's great. I love it. Yeah, we were talking about that a bit. I see Chris on YouTube says one of the best content creators and now map makers for Farm Sim.
Oh,
Gotta
I'm gonna have
love
to pay
that.
a lot of people when we get off here, I'm sure. Love
People
it.
were excited that you were going to be the guest. I think the community loves these spotlights because,
Yeah,
like, even if they don't know the person, they get to learn more about the person. But in your case, like, I posted it on Discord yesterday, and yeah, right away we had a comment like, "Yes, get in SFTN."
yeah.
So people
That
are
was just my
excited
second
that you're.
account. That was just me.
Oh, so can confirm that Simulation for the Nation is also derp on Discord.
Busted. Yeah, Dirt was a little bit upset with me because like you kept this from me for how long and you didn't tell me. But no, it's
uh,
great. And like the one thing I love about this community is, like I say, what, 6 years ish, and there's been people who are still in my streams now when I do stream who were there from day one when I nervously went on my first live streams, and it continues through, right? And it's the great thing about streaming, about content creation, and putting it all onto a platform such as YouTube or Twitch is that it's there for whoever and whenever. It's not just like you have to be in the moment now and it's live and it's gone. That you can watch it whenever. And I'm one of those people. I love just to catch up on live streams when I'm on break at lunch, at work, or if I'm traveling somewhere. You can just kind of pick it all up. And some of those folks have been around. And sometimes I question why they're still following around with me, but they're still there and they're having a great time and loving the platform and loving the game that we've built. So and it's great to see. And I think that's you know, there's been a few community members who we've tragically lost over the last few years as well, and it shows the value of the community more because everyone feels their impact right when they're no longer with us, and it's been great to celebrate them and to celebrate the whole community in those moments. So I never thought when we started this or when I started to press that record button that this is where we'd get to, but it's, the community comes out of nowhere, and it's the part that is really quite surprising. And I think, you and I were just touching on, before we started, the difference in the farm sim community versus some of these other communities out there for different platforms and different games. And the farm sim community is one of its own. I think it stands out there, and we have this one common theme around the farming or around agriculture, and where it takes you is just mind blowing, really. So it's really really fantastic.
Yeah. Well, thanks for saying that. It's awesome to have you here. We see people in chat that are excited. I know you've been excited. Um,
Mm,
yeah, and I agree with you. Of course, I love hearing from the community as well. Like, it's not just something that I think in my head. Like I say things about the community, but I truly mean them, and you can see it when people are kind of, saying the same things over and
yeah,
over. And our core community, the people that are like always around, always hanging out in these streams, for example, we all become kind of like we know everyone, or you start to know everyone over time. Like it's rather a small group, which is cool.
sure, yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad that you are a part of it. Of course, I want to ask you like the first
Cool.
question. You've kind of already answered it because you said FS11 is when you got started, and before this stream, we talked about like you having a background in farming.
Yeah.
So my first question is usually like, what was your first version? We know that answer already, FS11. And what was it maybe besides having a background in farming that like you wanted to try out playing Farming Simulator, or was it just the nostalgia of wanting to feel that again?
Yeah, it's a great question. I found that, so my family, we stepped away from farming in, oh, like finally and officially, I'll probably say when I was about 16, 17, or maybe a bit older than that. And I moved into different careers. I mean, throughout my life now, I'm mid 30s. I've been in civil engineering, in construction, in project management, renewable energy project management, various different operational analysis roles, working in London, different countries. But there was always agriculture was still rooted in me. You're never going to get away from that. You're never going to want to leave it. And there's that old saying: you can take the person off the farm, but you can't take the farm out of the person. And that rings true with me more than anyone, I think. And it was when I discovered FS11, it was just by chance. I can't remember how I found it. I think I may have stumbled across it whilst watching videos on YouTube, and someone put something up there, and then it came into more and more, especially with 13. There, it was a bit more of an opportunity just to decompress, to a bit of escapism, really, from what was going on with work at the time. And then that just rolled on, and then it almost became a way for me to stay connected with the industry that I was born and raised into, and was felt like I was losing touch with a little bit. Sure, you can look at things online and you can read various different articles, but having this option just to stay in and around it was great for me. And it was those two things of the relaxation, the decompression, and just that connection piece. So we stayed with it, and I kept playing it. Sometimes it was like an hour here, an hour there, just when you needed to. But then it became more and more enjoyable, and you'd find, I play a lot of first-person shooters, and slowly you'd find like the time you were playing those would go down, and the time that you were behind a wheel in the tractor would go up and up. And it was, it stayed that way for a long time, to be honest. And it's yeah, certainly something that from then 13, 15 got little bit more intense again in terms of hours played, and then 17 was when it was really really full blown, I think. And then during the end of 17 and then 19 is when the channel came around, and we started having things like community servers and daddy servers. And it's only then when your Nitrado server would show like number of hours on your game save, and you're
Uh
like,
oh.
oh guys,
Uh
whoa, we put a lot of
oh.
time in here. But it was great because again we had so many people from different backgrounds who all loved farming, just and all loved to be on this daddy server. A lot of people who follow me will know I like to play to a very realistic level, and we maintained that across this server, so it was really good fun to have that and have people who like playing in the same manner as I did. And yeah, it was just a really good place for us to spend that time. So yeah, I mean that's where it came from. That's where it stemmed. As for like how long I'll keep going, there's no there's no boundaries for me really. It's I'm sure the amount of time I get to play will change as days go by, but yeah, it'll always be there. And whenever I get the chance, the computer gets booted up, and it's like, oh, I'll just go and harvest this field. I'll just go and do this. So I've got an
Yeah.
hour. I can get something done.
Right. And now you're trying your hand at map making.
Yes, yes.
Tell everyone a little bit about like the transition for that for you. You know.
Well, this is the thing, Kermit. I was telling you before, like since about I don't know, FS 15, I was like, these maps are great. Playing Cobra Park Farm when Bullet Bills, in my mind, one of the best maps that ever has been and possibly will be. And I was like, man, this is good. This is really realistic. I was like, it'd be better if it was my farm though. And it just this like little niggling thought in the back of my head was like, well, how hard can this be? And usually when I think that, the answer is very. And it's much harder than I ever think it is. And so 17 came around, and again, for any of my role play series, which I put up on my channels, I edit farms a lot. So if it's, let's say, if it's Meadow Grove by Nathan, or if it's one of Oxygen David's maps, I'll message him and say, hey, I want to do this on my series. Do you mind if I tweak the farm a little bit just to make it work? And then like, sure. It's like, great. So we'll have a play around. And then, so I get used to GE. I can use Giant Editor quite well and move things around and add things in and make things work. And that's great. And it works fine. And I was like, well, if I can do that, how hard is Blender? And, that can't be too difficult. It turns out very, very hard, very difficult. So the first time I tried to make a map was in, yeah, FS 17 period. That's lasted about 2.5 minutes, and I just alt F4 Blender. I was like, nope, this is not working for me. No, thank you. And then left it. Never thought about it again. And then, yeah, I will use a few different bits of software for some of my other work, and I was thinking about it. I was like, oh, you know what, we'll give it another go, because I learned a new piece of software for work. I was like, well, we can learn that. We can try and learn Blender. And I was like, now's the time to try it again. So we did. And that was like October, November last year. Started to build a few farm buildings and farmyard layouts, and I was like, well, let's try and scale this and model this around one of our farmyards from back in the day. So we did, and kind of pieces together. And now I would say physically the map is all laid out there. The terrain's in. I got 76 fields done. All the farmyards are in. The animals are in. All the gameplay's there. It's now just like detailing little things. And like I was telling you before, I'm building a village at the moment. I put little things you don't think about. Like this morning, I spent some time building goalposts and a cricket pitch for a park. But you don't need to use that in Farm Sim, but
Right.
without the detail, it just doesn't feel immersive. So you need to make sure that's all there. So
Right.
yeah, we spent time doing that, and it's a different kind of escapism than just farming in your field, which is great. It's that the satisfaction of saying, oh, I started with nothing, and look, there's a shed there now, and there's fields, and but the thing that really really pleased me the most was when like I had cows in the shed. Putting animals into a shed, it just blew my mind. It was so frustrating at times, because like, well, they're not there. They're in a field over there. Why are they over there? They're in like they're floating. Why are my cows floating? So like it's spending all this time to make sure they work, but they work and they're in, and like this is perfect. So yeah, it's been great. It's been fantastic to see, and to get them to that point. And I don't set myself a timeline to like I want to be finished by June. I just want it to be finished, and I want to be eventually to a standard where I can get it out to everybody, because I want people to play it on Farmer Simulator on some of the farms that are in the fields that I worked in for years. So why not, really, if we can do that? And I hope people like it when we get to that stage, but time will tell. But it's the one thing it does do is increase the level of respect I have for anybody who's created the map in the past there, and the detail of someone like Oxy, who we all Oxygen David, who we all know, and whose work we love. It's hats off to them, because it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
It is. It is incredible. Yeah, Oxygen David, one of those names that's become synonymous with like top quality
Mm.
maps with Farming Simulator, isn't it? For sure. By the way, I want to shout out real quick. Thank you, Goober, for that raid over on Twitch. I appreciate you and everyone that came with you. Thanks everybody for joining us on Twitch and YouTube. So, Sim, I feel like you have decided to make a map. Like you finally are working on it, and you've
Yes.
given yourself maybe like the hardest task for a map possible, because like you would have cared about it to begin with. You care about it even more because it means something to you. It's something from your childhood. So you were talking about like putting the cricket pitch down, putting the
Mm,
goalposts, and like, yeah, you don't really need that, but if you don't do it, it's not going to feel right to you, right? So
no,
like,
and it's like you're right. There's that added extra incentive to nail it, and it's it's tricky because I'm using farms that we had in our family, and they were all spaced out over
okay,
quite a large distance in the very north of England, and it's I want them all to be in that, but obviously, you're bound by limitations of map size. So then
right,
you bring them together, and it's like kind of a like a patchwork quilt. You're bringing all these pieces in together, and I'm stitching them together by using areas of countryside that I really like. So like stretches of road that I would drive along for going to school or whatever it might be. Um, I'm bringing all these different field shapes in, and that works. But then, so I have to get past that in my mind, like, well, that's not quite right realistically. But it's there are limitations, so we'll do that. But then when it gets to like the field, it's like I can't not put a park, and I played football there for like years, from whenever I can remember. So like that has to be there, and then this has to be here for this reason, and but yeah, and that's one thing I found myself doing today. I'd already built this village, and I was like, well, the village is in. I don't like building houses, but the village is in, and I'm testing some. I'm driving a tractor through there just to test a grain sell point. Put this little like farm shop in. And, I'm driving through. And I'm just like, don't like those houses. And I'm in the back of my mind, you're mentally weighing it up. It's like, do I like them enough that I can keep them, or and not put another 2 or 3 or 4 hours into building all these houses, or are they going to annoy me if I leave them there and I'm gonna have to go back in later on and do it? And I'm like, well, I'm here now. We'll rip them out and we'll start them again. And you're right. I couldn't just leave them there. They wouldn't. I wouldn't be happy with them, and it would end up if it's not now, it will be 2 3 weeks down the line when I want to move on from doing that and finish something else. But yeah, it's I like it though. It's been a great challenge, and it's just something that whenever I've been fortunate and privileged enough with having the YouTube channel and having a community with me that various map creators would be like, hey, do you want to help test this new map I'm working on? It's like, yeah, great. So you start to test it and you give all this feedback around XYZ, or this doesn't quite work, or this might would be better if you change this, and then you could see sometimes why you get that pushback. And now I understand that, like, no, I can totally see why you don't want to change that, because it doesn't look like that in real life, and you're set on doing this way, and being true to real life as possible. So it's an interesting balance. And when I get to that stage, and I've got a few people lined up to do some basic testing for me as well, it's going to be like ooh, I'm not sure I want to change that, or this is like I can negotiate on this bit, but this is a hard no, that's not changing. But it's gonna be good. I'm more just eager to see what people think of it when we get to that point, and see when it gets out there. Hopefully, if you think of some of the other big maps that have had some, it's not that I want like a lot of download figures, or anything like that. I just want people who do download it to enjoy it, and that's the main thing.
right.
And
Well,
we'll see. We'll get there.
I mean, I'm gonna try it. I'm sure everyone sitting in here now is like, I'm gonna try it. So we're looking
Let's
forward
hope
to it.
so.
It sounds really cool. I love when people create maps based on like an area that means something to them. Like
Right?
some of my favorite maps, like Griffin, Indiana, is one of my favorite ones. Like a local area one. Recently, was playing East Vineland, New Jersey. Same thing. Mac Trucker made there. AJ Farmer, by the
Mm.
way, creator of Griffin, Indiana. Want to get those names out there if I can remember too. East Vineland, New Jersey. My uncle's actually from that town. That's where he grew up. So I like that
Oh,
has a
cool.
like a connection even to me. And Mac Trucker did not have any clue that that was the case when he made the map. It's his hometown from what I understand. But still cool to see stuff like that, in a game that you love, and then see areas that mean something to you in real life as well, and then connecting the
Yeah.
two. So it'll be cool to see your reaction to the work that you've put in, and seeing that final product when you're there and you're happy with it, because I know it comes from a place of like nostalgia, but also just passion to relive those moments and be able to experience that again as if you were a teenager, in your
Well,
case.
that's it. And I find that you can get so engrossed in Farming Simulator as a whole. Anyway, I think everyone who's you and I and everyone who's watching this stream have probably said, "Oh, I'll just go on and spend half an hour doing something," and then next thing you know, it's like 3 in the morning. You've got work at 9. You're not going to sleep because you're too wired. It's like, "Oh, I'll just do one more field, or one more field, or whatever it might be." And that's always been there, and it's always been great. And there's the platforms have moved on, and we go from FS11 to present day, there's so much more you can do. But there's that one thing that's like, well, this is great, but it's not quite as immersive as it could be because I don't have that relationship with where I'm farming right now. Whereas if you get that point and it's suddenly like I can just sit and work all these fields all day, and everyone has that period where it's like, oh, I've played this map a lot, and I'm probably at the edge of wanting to find a new challenge. Whereas, for me, having spent so many times in these years in these fields, it's gonna be like, no, this is where it is. This is what we do, and I love this specific field because of X, and I'm gonna keep doing this. And one day I might get my dad to come in. I tried to get my dad to play Farm Sim before. That didn't go well for a retired farmer. He was more bamboozled by the computer than anything else. But I would love to get him to join me and work on the field there as well again. So it would be like a different, like going back, like me being the teacher now as opposed to the students, and going back 25 years to learn again. So that'd be pretty cool if we can get to that stage. But man, based off the hour I gave him on when he was visiting me recently, it's gonna take a lot of practice on that side.
You were talking a bit about how you've been chatting with your dad because you're working on like the farm that you grew up in, and like that
Mm.
he has a hard time like getting the concept of what it is exactly you're doing, but he still like enjoys seeing like the farm in a virtual
Well, that's it.
setting,
I,
right?
I think I think there's a lot of pride around the fact that I was able to replicate it. I suppose and
Right.
he when they were last over, they obviously still live in the UK. I live in Canada, so they visited last fall, and I sat him down in front on my rig and sat him down with a wheel. Like, look, there's your pedals. This joystick does this. There's your gear stick, and then we were actually driving around Carmson Farm. And as I said, look, off you go. And he got used to it, and he was like, yeah, but I don't really like. He was impressed by how accurate the vehicles looked and how great this map was, and I got him doing some basic cultivation, I think, and he liked it. But for him, I think he likes to see, hey, this is this big game, this is Farm Simulator, this is what we were doing, but now, oh look, there's my farm in its infancy, granted, but it's
Right.
on the game, right? And it's
Yeah.
there, and that's the shed that Lord he built in whatever year, and this is the farm that we lived on for X number of years, and that's my uncle's farm, and how long we spent up there doing various different bits and pieces. So yeah, he really liked seeing that aspect of it there. But yeah, it's man, I don't know if anyone's tried to get their parents or any grandparents out there into farm sim, and it's a challenge. But yeah, I think once we get this finished, I want to get him sat down in front of it again, and then they'll be great. But I think he could see the idea behind it, but was more confused as to how I got it from my mind, all these pictures into there, and it's like that. I'm not going to
Right.
entertain that conversation with you. I'm not going to talk to you.
Uh, that's great. That's great. It's really cool to hear about that experience, both like you working on it, his view of
Mm.
it, and everything. I think we are all definitely eagerly looking out for that to be fully released. All platforms, PC only. Like, what's your plan for it?
God willing, all platforms. That's my hope. That's my dream for it. I don't think I can say it's properly completed if it isn't.
Right.
Um, Now, come back to me when I'm working through all these fixes and errors and tests, and trying to work out what's gone wrong and why. We'll see. But no, that's the hope at least. But yeah, it's my main aim right now is I just want to get it finished to a high standard, and I'm going to start to get it tested through there. But yeah, I don't want to release it just to PC only. I want to let everyone have a chance to see the area I grew up in and to play around with it as well, because I think it's great. And I think I have a console here as well. I have an Xbox, and I love occasionally going to that and just having a little bit more of a maybe a relaxed approach to playing on there, because I don't have all these different add-ons and scripts enabled. But sometimes, like, I'm just going to find the biggest bit of equipment I can find and farm the biggest field I can find, and I'm going to
Right.
go and I'm going to enjoy myself.
It
But
was
yeah, I don't see why we don't get that for my farm on for console players as well.
Uh, great answer, by the way. It was really fun to be on the other side of like a farm sim related question like that, because usually I'm being asked by the community like, when is this being released, or give us more info on this, please. And I'm usually pretty stoic in my response. You gave a lot more information than I would in most cases. No.
I'm also coming at this from the perspective of I can guarantee there are a lot of errors in my map right now, and when I load up, there are a few. Some of them I know they're there because I haven't got to do in that part of the development, but some of them are going to probably be rage-inducing as I try to fix them. Patience is something I'm slowly building and learn how to behold. So yeah, we'll get there. We will get there. I have a few friends across the farm sim community who I lean on for advice, and they're going to be, I apologize in advance because it's going to be a lot of questions.
That's the great thing, though. Like I feel like if you talk to most modders out there, they've been able to leverage each other and learn from each other, and
Agreed.
you don't typically get to a place of like success without you know collaborating with others and finding ways to learn from them, both the things that they've done well. Maybe they can also teach you like to learn from their mistakes and such too. So yeah,
Mm.
leveraging the each other is an important thing. I think I can only imagine like how hard it would be going into making a map if you didn't already have some of those connections. I'm sure that they've been really helpful to you, so at least you have
Oh yeah.
a little bit of a head start with that, right? So that's cool.
Yeah, and it's yeah, again, that's a part, an arm of the community that you don't really think about, really. You think about those everyone jumping onto Discord or jumping onto a Deddy server to play, but there's so many forums out there that is like, hey, I'm trying to do this, I'm getting this error code, why? Or what do I do? Or what's happening? Why
Right.
is this not showing up in game? And so, like, you're right. No one goes from just opening up Blender to building the perfect mod or the perfect map. It doesn't happen. You've got to learn. You've got to take these steps. So and you got to start small and nail one concept and then build up and find those people, know where your resources are to ask those questions when you are stuck, and but then take those lessons and take those on to the next one. And it's great because there's some ridiculously talented people out there in our forum and in our community. So some of the models that some of the modern teams build are just mind-blowingly detailed and so complex in their design, but yet when you put them connected to your tractor in game, it's seamless. Everything works perfectly. Or you jump onto a map and you can then bring up Google Maps next to it, and it's identical in its nature. So that's like we have so many talented people out there, and it's great that there's so many people willing to offer that support or advice and to see maybe see the next Oxygen David come through the ranks, or maybe see the next Vertex design group start from nothing and build up, right? And that's what's great about it, because everyone's been there at some point. Everyone's had that first question of what the heck am I doing here when you open up Blender, and like why have I decided to do this? And
Right.
Alt F4, worry about it later. But it's great to see that we're there, and it's I don't know, there aren't that many other communities in my experience at least that can do that, or even many games that offer you that option to do it. Having Giant Editor there is perfect. Like, you want to learn how to do this in game, there you go, there's the tools that you need, have at it. And it's
Right.
it's great, and I think that's such a big cornerstone of this whole community, really.
Cool. Switching gears a little bit, let's go
Mm,
back to like some gameplay related questions for Farm Sim, and let's go
hit me.
like more present day. You said you started with 11. You really started to get into it with 15. You said, right, and then 17 and 19 is kind of when your content creation started to take off more. So,
Yeah.
but talking about 22, what's been your favorite things about it so far?
You know what? It's fascinating when you see the evolution of the game. It's what I love about what happens with every version is it's like you take Giants take, okay, so what was the success from let's say 19? What worked really well? And did we change something? Did that work well? Yes. Or what lessons were there to learn, and what opportunities do we take moving forward? And then you build on those, and you build on those, and it's been that consistent evolution. So now, for example, I remember um, with 22 jumping in there, and for me it was the cab immersion or the driver immersion. So like I always, like I say, predominantly when I'm creating content as well, it's always realism. It's always trying to be as realistic as possible as to how I would drive a tractor. So it's always first person in cab, and it was like the sounds, the atmosphere of being inside that cab there, the having gearbox mod enabled there was just like mind blowing. And you're starting to have to think when you're driving this tractor like you would realistically, because you don't just like floor the pedal on the right and go. You've got to think about, well, I'm doing this. Do I need to change down the gear? What happens if I don't? And then it's like, oh, it's raining. Listen to the wipers start to go there, and all these the small little things because it was like I felt like 22 for me was rounding out some of the imperfections that we may have had from previous games and fixing those little things rather than going big scale, and that for me was perfect. And there are several different creators out there who will move on to, let's say, FS24. Oh, excuse me for the phone call. But then they will still go back to the previous version, and when that comes out, and the previous version and the previous version. But I'm like, no, 22 right now has everything I need and it's perfect. And it's, I could just sit there in cab and just keep going. You've got sounds, you've got atmospheric kind of deviations, you've got all this different noise, you've got different experiences when you're inside the cab as well. And that's what really kept me going with it. And then as you start to add in all the different add-ons as well, if you start to bring in things like the precision farming, where you've got again something else to kind of think about there, that's what really grabs me with this. Because yeah, right now it's about me finding that balance with the relaxation and escapism when I'm not recording, but also it's keeping in tune with what's happening in real world agriculture right now. Things are becoming more complex, things are becoming more difficult. It's not like it used to be, and you've got to keep you've got to be thinking about all these things. And for those of us who aren't lucky enough, in my opinion, to be involved in agriculture still, you still get that opportunity to do it, obviously on less there's less line on your on the reaction to your decision, but it's still equally as challenging. And that's it's been really interesting with 22 so far. The every single DLC that comes out adds that next little factor onto it, which has been great to see. And yeah, that's what's really blown me away so far there, and things that I just didn't see when we roll back to maybe 15. Just didn't see that coming. 15 was for me was about the mods, was about having fun with all the talent of the developers, but never did I think that we'd be where we are now with just the vanilla in-game features that we do have. And I think we're almost a bit spoiled for it, really, in my opinion, because it's becoming mind-blowingly impressive as to where we can take this now with what we have, if that makes sense. And I think
Yeah.
it's going to be great to see. I know somewhere somebody has the ideas of what that next like mind-blowing feature will be, and it's going to be great to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I think I like what you said about the immersion. Was never a in cab driver in farm sim before, and now like
Mm.
I try to find every excuse to do it because
All
it's
right.
just so enjoyable. My wife and I just started playing on Hinterland. We started a new save, and I decided to do something that I don't usually do. Like usually I'll plant crops and harvest the crop, but now I was like, you know what? Both of us playing together instead, let's plant crops and then chop them for silage so that we have to
Mm.
do it together at the same time. And like it's really cool. We have our TVs like above each other in the living room,
Okay.
and so I almost use her TV like on the bottom as like a drone view of like because
Nice.
she plays out of cab and she's running the forage harvester and she has her camera like up high so you can see the pipe and where it's hitting in the trailer or not, and then I'm just in cab like just enjoying the sounds that you get when you're in cab, slightly muted environmental sounds, you still kind of hear it a little bit, and then being
Mm.
able to like glance over, look at her and the forage harvester, glance back, like it's kind of eye opening for me being in this job now and getting to go onto real life farms that in harvest season, like that a grain cart driver like drives like this the whole time. Like they're just, or maybe it's actually this shoulder, depending, they're just like, like, first of all, that has to hurt your back after doing it for like 10 hours a
Yeah.
day, just like, and your neck, just like, looking back the whole time and how they still manage to go forward properly. It's just mind blowing to see that. So I try to like put that a little bit into my gameplay now when I can, because you're right, that immersion is definitely there a little bit more than it used to be in the past, which is cool to see.
And I loved. It must have been FarmCon when we were having the reveal of some of the in-game features that were coming for FS22, and we were watching all these different videos and like looking into the complexity. I think it was around the sound engineering and the sound design, and looking into the complexity of like how they brought this in, and what it looked like to actually implement something as easy in my what would appear to be easy, at least, would be like the windscreen wipers, and when like what that sounds like coming on there, and just think it takes so much to implement that into game, but it's and you might only notice it for like 20 seconds. It's like, oh, it's raining, the wipers are on, and then you just carry on. But it's like that. Without that, you just like, it just doesn't feel like it's raining yet. You know, you can see the rain going down, but it's like my wipers aren't going crazy, and you know, I'm not having to think about what we're doing in game now. But it's yeah, it's those little things that really kind of tie it all together, which has been great. And you're right. It's like sometimes you'll be spending the day on farm sim doing whatever, and you never look back once, but you still feel you park up when you're gonna log off, and it's like, man, I'm tired. That was a day. That was a that was a good few hours of like carting whatever or plowing this field, and like God. And then I cast my mind back to like finishing the day on the tractor, and it's like, yeah, it's not quite. I'm not feeling that tired because not once do you point if I had to turn around or to do anything or to get out or,
Yeah.
or to
Right.
fix something. But no, it's a great point.
Yeah. I love it. What's been your favorite maps on 22 so far?
So 22, Comms and Farm came out quickly and early. I was surprised how quickly that came out. That's been really, really good to see. What I like about that, it's probably no surprise that I play a lot of British and Irish maps. What I loved about that was Oxy gives you so many different places to start. You know, it's not like this is the farm, you start here, and then you want to play a new game. This is the farm, you start in the same place again. There's so many different areas and farms, and you can really tailor that series to what you want to do. I've been able to do that a bit with by changing a few things in GE as well for one of my series, and I found that was really good fun. But that's also like one of the first maps to come out there, and it was like, wow, this is what the benchmark's going to be.
It's
This is
still,
where we need
yeah.
to get to,
I played
and it's
so
still
much on
going.
Comston, and I almost went back to it recently when we decided to start again. Like, I was like, should we just play more Comston? And I was like, no, I want to play something
Should we
new.
stick with
Come
what we
on,
know?
let's, yeah, yeah. It was a great map, and
No,
you're right, it did come out pretty quickly.
yeah, and that's been really good fun. We had Attenham Park as well, came along, which has been really fun for me. Um, and then actually, I think the map that I have the most hours on so far is actually Greenland's Farm.
Okay.
And it's again, I changed a few things around, put a like a little contractor's yard in one corner there, and I was that's like way north of like 150 hours at this point, I think, and I haven't touched it in a little bit, admittedly, but it's yeah, that's the map that's kind of kept me going there, and like yeah, surprisingly, it wasn't the one that I thought would have the most on, but that's done pretty well. And then there's also being Canadian, like living in Canada now. I had a look at Edgewater, Saskatchewan, and that's like I have my partner's family live out that way, out in the prairies, so that has I can resonate a lot with that. I can see some of the areas, and you know, it does look it does remind me of when we go over there, driving over the prairies in Canada. If anyone's ever done it, or if you plan on going out that way, it's beautiful, stunning. To go in there like August time when everything's just ripening up is incredible, and it does look really, really good. So it's and I do like to occasionally get those the big like I would classify it as like big prairie equipment, you know, the huge
Right.
sprays and the huge air seeders and just get at it. So yeah, they would be the maps so far. And there's a I do find there's always a lot of talk about which maps are coming and who's working on this and who's working on that. So there's a few that are obviously coming down the pipeline that look like they're going to be very impressive. And shout out to Nathan who creates Meadow Grove. I've been on that map so many times and so many years that it's whenever that is ready to roll, we'll probably have a little dive into that and bring back a role play series that a lot of people love. But we'll yeah, there's a lot coming up as well, which should be great to see.
That's cool. Plus your map as well. At some
Well,
point,
yeah,
we'll get
hopefully we'll
it.
get to that point. Yeah, fingers crossed.
All
I'll add
right,
that to the
cool.
list.
I actually going back a little bit. We got about like 20 to 35 minutes or so left on the
Cool.
stream, so plenty of time still to go. But going back to like you getting into map making, I wonder if you already have some like advice for people that are maybe sitting watching this right now and they're like they're in your shoes, they've been playing the game for a while, and now they're
Yeah.
like finally like, hey, I want to get into modding. Like, you know, tell people a little bit about your experience and the things you've learned already along the way.
I think I think best advice I would have around it is it's easy to get stuck into the detail first. You know, it's easy to start to lay hedges down and to build fields and to paint terrain in because it's something we can learn pretty easily in GE. and it's, it gives you the most satisfaction of progression. You can just spend an hour drawing out a field, marking things in, and bam, your field's there. You can load it into game, and you'll see the field there. You can place down a road. If you use those placeable road sections, and you got a road there, so it all starts to come together. But the reality is, at some point, you need to think about what the in-game features look like. Can you figure out how to place down and edit the placeable scripts to make sure the sell points are in the right location? Can you figure out how to build a farm? If you're gonna, there are some great mod makers out there who have made prefab objects, so you can place them down. That's great. If you're not looking to build a realistic map, then sure. If you don't want to build a map that looks like your farm, use every asset that you can get a hold of on the mod hub, and build out from there. But you are going to have to figure out how to put the cows in the right place at some stage, or you are going to have to figure out how to build a nav mesh and how to add all these different things and to make the game actually work the way that we're used to. So learn that side of it first, and then once you have everything in place, then you can build detail around it. And it's going to be frustrating because it's, if you've never done that before, if you don't have any experience in coding or in understanding lines of code, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. I have a little bit of a background in that, but not much. So I had something to click on to, and then you start to like learn a little bit more. But it was, if you are trying to build, your family farm or whatever it may be, then you've got to just jump into Blender and to figure out. Start by building a small shed, and then learn how to add detail onto that small shed and how to make that small shed a little bit better and better. And then you can take that and start with the next shed. And if you're anything like me, what I found out was, I'll build like 4 or 5 sheds, and by the time I finished the 5th one, I realized that the first one wasn't any good. So you go back and you redo the first one again, and then you start going through there. And that's the only way to do it. And the sense of satisfaction you'll feel when you finish is going to be huge. So it's definitely worthwhile.
What
And
about
also time. Just have a
yeah.
lot of time.
Yeah. That's a key. That one is hard to figure out though, depending on your situation, isn't it? You seem
Yes.
like a pretty busy guy. What about because you, of course, have also been creating content for several years now for Farming Simulator? What kind of
Hmm.
experiences have you had in that journey? What kind of advice would you give to people from that perspective?
It's funny, the I predominantly produce content for YouTube. Always have. I have a Twitch account, but I think I restreamed onto Twitch once, and I was like, no, my forte is YouTube. We'll stay with that. You've got to decide early to begin with, in my opinion, what is it that you want to produce? Like, sure, you like to play farm sim, that's great, but don't try and produce content that you feel is the right thing to produce because everyone's producing it. So
Right.
be that, time lapse series or whatever it may be. Like, produce what you enjoy producing, because if you're going to be, let's say, doing a role play series, and you're not bought into the idea of doing a role play series, or you haven't really got everything set up, it's going to come through when you make that content. It's going to shine through that, you're not invested in it enough. Perhaps maybe the character story or the enthusiasm isn't there in the recording, or perhaps it's the edit isn't there at all. People aren't going to want to watch it if you're not investing that time into it. So find what you really enjoy about farm sim and do that. And then once if you're lucky enough to get some following and some success with that, then you can look at maybe diversifying a little bit and find other things that you might like to do. Or when my channel was a lot younger, Virtual Farmer and we started to talk, and we figured out that we both have an interest in role play, and what we should do is collaborate. And we built this series in, oh geez, that would have been FS17 it started, called Cornbrook Contractors. And we started out, the two of us, doing like different perspectives from a multiplayer co-op series. And that was something that we both really enjoyed. We got channel friends to come in and be different characters in there as well. And it just added a whole different realm and something that wasn't really already being done, but it was all very much around what we liked doing. And I don't think we would ever, I certainly would never force myself to produce content that I just didn't like, because it's just ultimately, it's just not going to work for me. And then the other side of it is as well, there are some people who create farm sim content and who are very fortunate enough to be able to do it for a full-time living, and I think that's fantastic that the franchise and the Farm Simulator is in that position now that you can do that. But that's not going to be for everybody, unfortunately. We're not all going to be able to be there. So only like find a schedule that accommodates you and your day to day, be it if you've got school, you've got work, family commitments, or whatever. Because otherwise, YouTube and any kind of content creation is a time hole. I think is the best way to describe it. You know, you can invest all the hours in the world into it in 1 week, and by the next week, that's kind of forgotten about, and then you have to do it all again. And it's you have to do it again. And if you set yourself up with a very demanding schedule, at some point you're either going to burn out or you're going to struggle to make it work. And both of those relate and result in the same thing, which is going to be the content's going to have a dip in quality. So I think it's really finding what works well for you and how you can enjoy it. If it's just live streaming, then great. Find a consistent live stream schedule that works for you. You know, find what time of the day you want to go live and how many days a week, and then you can take it from there. But that's what I've learned throughout various periods of my channel's life. And my channel is relatively quite small, but I love it for being that, because it's a it's something that I've kind of nurtured and created. And those, as we were saying before we started, there a lot of those channel members are still with me now from day one, and you can start up a stream and they come back in, and it's fantastic to see that. And it's been a great ride and a great learning experience to be where we are. And a good friend of ours, DJ Goham, is just an absolute machine when it comes to content creation. And but the dedication that he puts in to get to where he is probably something that goes unseen, right? Because all you see is, oh, notification from DJ, and you watch it. But in the reality, he's up very early, he's grinding, he's got a schedule, he has to work hard to it, and that comes first, and then everything else. And if you're willing and able to do that, best of luck. But if you have a family or if you have school, then it's gonna be a struggle.
Yeah, I think that is some of the best advice we've had on here. It's true, to make sure that you're doing things you want to do, even if
Yeah,
it's a game you love. Even like if you love Farming Simulator and you've played it for thousands of hours, and then you decide to start streaming it, you still may find yourself in a situation where you're not enjoying it as much, because all of a sudden, like if like I fell into a trap when I was a mixer partner, for example, and was doing a lot of content creation on my own,
mm,
where I went from Farming Simulator, because that's what got me partnered on the platform back then, was Farm Sim 17. And then quickly, as Mixer started to grow at Microsoft, it became like more important for them, at least for like the bigger games, to be played. They
sure.
wanted you to play the latest, greatest whatever game that everyone was obsessed with, to bring viewers in. And as soon as you start like going to that, like you're just not enjoying yourself as much. But you can even do it, I think, in Farm Sim if you just feel like you have to go live because you're expected to, and then all of a sudden you're there, you're playing a game that you usually enjoy, but like you're just not fully like invested in it that day. You've got to make sure
Yeah,
that it's hard because you want to be consistent as well, and it's good to be consistent, but you also should take time for yourself, and realize that if you're not just feeling it, then necessarily you don't have to do it. And like you said, like just go for it, but also make sure that you're enjoying it, and that's pretty important. It's,
yeah,
it's it's
and
it's it's really easy to say that, but it's hard in the situation to like force yourself to actually listen to that, to listen to your own advice too. Like it's easy to get in your own head and say like, they're expecting me to go live, and I wasn't live last week, every day that I said I was going to be, so I probably should go live. And yeah, it's tough, but not everyone's different. The way that content creation will work for you won't necessarily work for everyone else, and the way that you approach it shouldn't be the same as someone else. It should be approached from your perspective, fitting it into your life, making sure that it's not taking away from other things in your life that are important, but that it's filling the time that you do have well, and that you're enjoying it and making the most of it.
yeah, and I think the key thing to remember is as well that um, it's that enjoyment piece, right? Someone's going to come and watch you or watch me on the live stream because they want to watch around this. They want to watch us play Farm Sim ultimately, but they want to be entertained, and the way they get that entertainment is by like you enjoying the game and having the most fun you can have in that moment in that game. Whatever you might be doing, if you're challenging yourself to something, or if you just sat in your combine going up and down, whatever it might be, but you're interacting with them and you're having fun. And if you're not like 100%, if you're not feeling up to it, then that's going to come through, and they're not probably going to want to watch that as much. Like the way I always look at it now, and it's with the benefit of hindsight that I can do that now is say, well, I wasn't up to it then, and like, would I want to watch me in that when I'm like maybe coming home after a long day at work and I'm at 50% energy and I'm just like, oh, don't really feel like it, but the schedule's the schedule. Off we go, and it's that's not going to be good for anybody to watch. And but you've just got to have fun with it, and that's what it's about, just having fun. And some of the best streamers do that, and they bring people in when they come in, say hello and chat for the first time. It's like you involve them in it straight away and try and have that enjoyment. So that's the best thing that you can learn, and sometimes it's difficult to discover that, but if you can take that on from the outset there, then your channel will grow to be whatever you want it to be, as long as you keep having fun with it. But the games, from a content creation standpoint, Farming Simulator has everything you want to make it fun. You can do anything you want there. You can go and have a riot trying to fell trees in a wood somewhere in forestry, or you can play seriously around doing whatever it might be on your farm. But you've got everything in that spectrum.
Yeah.
It's just about making sure that you have that fun.
I mean, even like you do a lot of role plays, and in your case, like you've already said today, you focus more on like realistic type of role plays. Whereas
Hmm.
there's people out there that are doing crazy things, not even farm
Yeah,
sim related in role plays with the
exactly.
game. Like it's just within that subgenre alone of like doing role play stuff and role play content with the game, you can get like 1,000 different types of role play. There's just so
Yeah,
much variety there. You can really make it to be whatever you want it to be, which is cool. I think that it's really neat to see the people, like the content that people come up with, because there is almost like a blank canvas of creativity there for you to take in and run with. And um, it's cool to see the growth of content creation around Farming Simulator over the years, because it's becoming less and less like a niche title over time. Like
yeah,
more and
definitely.
more people are becoming aware of it, and part of the reason why is because of content creators like yourself and others. The exposure is out there more. It's really fun for me to come into working for Giants and being a fan of the game previously, and now like going to gaming conventions and other events representing the company, and seeing like people know the brand, people know the name, even if they've never played it. At like an event like
Yeah,
PAX, people will come by and say, "Hey, like I've been hearing a lot about your game." I don't think that would have, especially like in North America. Like, yeah, there's been people playing it for a long time already, but I feel like you wouldn't have had that same kind of exposure just 5 years ago for the game. It's really grown a lot in the minds of people that don't necessarily play it, but they know about it, and they're
yeah,
probably
for
going to
sure.
play it one day. And a lot of times that happens. They come to PAX and they're like, "Hey, I've heard of your game," or "I watched this YouTuber or streamer and they've played it a bit and it looks really fun." And you're like, "Well, you want to sit down and play it?" And then they sit down and play it right there, and they're like, "Yeah, that was really fun. I think I could really get into enjoying this." Our new mobile version just came out yesterday, as everyone knows, and there was a video on YouTube, and I love the title of it. And this is what I see a lot with our game too. The title was something like "Farming Simulator 23 on Nintendo Switch is the perfect come down from Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom," and you get that a lot too. People that are playing like higher pace shooters, or RPGs, action adventure games, where they have really difficult moments in the game, these complex
Yeah,
sword battles or gunfights or whatever it is. Maybe you're playing a multiplayer competitive game, and then you back it down a little bit in the intensity, and then you chill on some farm sim after to relax. And that's happening a lot more now too. So it's cool to kind of see that growth for sure over the content creation world, but also like the mod creators. We're over like 4,000 mods for 22
oh,
at
wow.
this point, I think. And like at near the end of 19, it was just slightly higher than that number. And this is like a few weeks old, I think, this number that I have in my head
Good lord.
floating around. So
That's
like there's been more coming out since then. It's insane, really, and amazing.
what that does, and what I love about that is, to your point, that you can, if me playing FS13 was told that, oh, soon you're gonna be playing on this map, but you're not gonna be in a track that you're gonna be in off-road buggies, or you're gonna be
Right,
in,
yeah.
whatever it might be. And I did one Christmas I was having like a members event for YouTube, and we played hide and seek on this. It was on no man's land. So there's very few buildings. It's all just countryside, rolling hills. We played hide and seek. We're in cars and then off-road buggies, and one of the like we were all just like going everywhere on this map and playing just random chase and like tag and hide and seek it. But it was probably 2 hours of the most fun I've ever had on Farm Sim, because it was like all bets are off. You're just gonna hoon it around on this map and have as much fun as you can possibly have, and to see where it goes. And there were prizes for who finished where and who hid the longest, if you like. But yeah, when would that have ever been possible in the past? Like, it's only as people start to create more mods, and suddenly you find this like monster trucks out there. It's like, well, I'm downloading that. I don't. It's got no fitting on my map, but I'm downloading this monster truck, and we're gonna have a play, and we're gonna see just what I can do with it. And you're right. Sometimes you need that little bit of a calm down when you've had like a rage-inducing moment on Zelda or whatever it may be on a different game. Like, I'm Alt F4 out this, and I'm gonna just go and farm for a little bit. That's
Right.
that's gonna be my come back to reality, and back onto neutral, and we'll start again. But it's been great. And
Yeah.
I just see in chat there, I see Dip and a nameless ghoul mentioned that we did. I'm not a very big forestry fan. Just never really something I've done. But myself, VF, Gamer Dragon, and Dip actually partook in a multiplayer when the Volvo DLC came around, and we jumped on, and like we are all collectively useless at forestry, like absolutely appalling at it. Like the controls were just foreign to us. We had no clue what we were physically trying to do. It was probably the some of the most fun that we've had, and it was just like because there's four of us just messing around with like this huge equipment. And like at one point, you'd fell a tree, and then you just like waving it around like a wand, just smashing into things, trying to like we had an objective in mind,
I think I was
but we just
watching
couldn't.
this. I feel like I
Yeah, it
watched
was it was
this.
utter chaos for parts, and we just like I haven't laughed as hard in a stream in ages, and it was just good, honest fun, right? And like
Yeah.
there's few games where you get that when it's just like, well, you could do this, but we're just gonna have fun, and we're just gonna see where the stream takes it. And we did that for a few streams, and it was great. But oh my word, is it just like it's something that I never thought I'd be able to do. But it was we'll probably come back to that at some stage, because I think for special events it's a must.
Have you
And you're
had a
welcome
chance?
to join us next time as
Okay,
well,
okay.
because that'll
I
be
would
a.
love to. Have you had a chance to do any of the arena mode beta stuff yet? Because
You know what? Unfortunately, no. It's on my to do. When I get a few more days in a row where I can actually get back on my computer, that's the next thing. But yeah,
yeah,
I am
it's
quite
it.
competitive, so
There you
God
go.
help anyone who comes against me.
Before we ask my favorite question at the end, you were telling me a story earlier about how you play a different game and you met some
Yes.
guys who like go to this school in Denmark, I think
Yeah.
you said. Tell the story.
Yeah.
I think this is really cool.
So I play. I'm a big fan of first-person shooter games. Always have been. And I'm particularly a bit of a history nut, so I really like playing World War Two and World War One games. So you can think about all through the different titles from the years gone by. But I play a game called Hell Let Loose, and I am part of a competitive clan called the Devil Dogs. So if anyone's here, shout out to them. And Hell Let Loose, if you know, plays like 50v50, online only multiplayer game. It's very realistic, and it's not like it relies on tactics, but it's not like a military sim. You don't have to live by the tactics. You can have fun and enjoy it. But my clan and my clanmates are from predominantly across Europe. There's a few of us from North America, but predominantly there's a lot of Brits. There's a lot of Scandinavians in there, and some of the guys who are Danish. I was talking to them. I signed up to this clan, and one of them recognized my username, and then Googled it and found out that it was a YouTube channel, and found out how many subscribers. And we started to talk about YouTube a little bit in Farm Sim. And then one guy comes on, he's like, wait, as in Simulation for the Nation? Because my Discord name was Sim for the Win. And I was like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, and he told me about himself. He's a teacher at this community college, and it's kind of like a agricultural community college, really, where you can go and learn about different aspects of farming, or all the different skills and trades surrounding farming. And so he teaches like mechanical engineering, I guess. So how you'd become a fitter for John Deere, or mechanic for Massey or Fendt or whomever. And he was like, my students watch you on their breaks whilst we're at school. And so here I am playing at the moment. We're playing on a map in Normandy at the time with American soldiers. We're fighting against obviously the Germans at the time. And here is someone on my proximity team chat talking to me about how his farming or his agricultural students are watching my farming channel whilst we're playing. And it's just, it's nuts. Like, I was saying to you before that the concept of YouTube is not unfamiliar to me, but still to have like those degrees of separation just come back in whilst we're playing a completely different game was just mind blowing. And then suddenly, as we're talking about this chat of ours is getting bigger and bigger in Discord, and there's about 20 people there. And suddenly there's so many people like, oh yeah, I play this. I've got out of this Discord, there must be about 20 of us who have or do still play. And some of them work away at sea, so they take the laptop with them when they're off duty and they'll just sit there on the laptop whilst they play. Some of them play when they get home to relax, some of them play a bit more intensely. But there's the whole spectrum there. And it's that to me really, when you're talking about farm sim to people who never played it before, that's a great way to kind of encapsulate what it is and what the community is and where that game reaches. Really, it's not like once upon a time it may have been a niche game, but to your point earlier, it's far from that. And it's great to see that. Actually, I think it's superb.
Yeah, I love those interactions. I get to witness them like in person too now, which is cool. Like whenever I travel to events, one that like I have in my mind that's farm sim related is when I was at Kubota Connect back in October with
Mm,
Clutch Simulations, and it was so of course he streamed online, so we had that audience, but the in-person audience, like Clutch and I were literally the only two people in there that weren't working for Kubota in some capacity,
yeah,
whether like at their corporate offices or they're like working at a dealership. Um, this event is usually about getting all of their North American staff together, and they're placing orders every year for the dealership needs X Y Z of this amount of equipment and this
sure.
and this. But this guy comes up and he's talking to us, and he actually is in charge of like the Kubota University, which they use in house to train their dealers basically on the new equipment. Here's this new piece of equipment. This is all the new nuances with it. This is how to operate it, etc., so that their dealers are knowledgeable. This guy comes over and he was like, Clutch, I have been watching your streams for years. And he's like, I've never said anything in there. Like, he's like, I'm definitely like a lurker. He was an older guy, one of the nicest guys, but like just to experience that in person for him to be like,
Yeah,
because Clutch introduced himself like, you probably don't know who I am. I'm Clutch Simulations. This guy's like, oh, I know who you are. I've been watching you for a long
that's
time. And
amazing.
and
I
Clutch
love
was
that.
like, really? Yeah. I've never said anything. He was like, because he was like, what's your username? He was like, well, I've never said anything in there. I'm just a lurker. But yeah, I just wanted to say I like your content. It's really cool to
That's
see those
awesome.
kind of moments when I'm out at these events, and it happened at PAX as well. Like, because of course we knew some of the partners that were going to be there, but then DJ Modding showed up and no one knew he was coming, and it was like
Ah,
all of a sudden like, oh my god, here's DJ Modding. Like in the farm sim community, if you narrow it down to that, like you'll know so many names, especially if you're like playing different maps created by people or using mods. You have all these names in your head of all these people that have created stuff that is like some of your favorite stuff in the game. And so to have those moments where you can like put a face to the name and like shake the hand of that person is pretty cool to experience at times as well. All right, Sim, it's time for that last question. You've got
hit
about
me.
10 minutes to answer it, so I think that might be enough time. Let's see how much you brought.
All
But
right.
I love this question. You've been playing the game for a while. You have a background in agriculture as well before, as a teenager and a kid growing up. So, first of all, looking into the camera at everybody, this doesn't mean that this is officially coming to the game. What Sim's about to say, but I am going to ask him to dream big. And Sim, if you could put a few things into the future farming simulator titles, things that you would like to see added, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so it's twofold, really, I suppose. And the first one, it's a bit of an oxymoron, really. So to go for the future of farming simulator, I kind of want to go backwards. Now that might not make much sense, but what I want us to do is, I would love to see previous generations of farming recognized. So we've touched on with 22. There's obviously a few classic machines in there from different ranges, which is great. It's a bit of a homage, really, to to the evolution of some of these machines. But I think there's so much potential there for expanding classic ranges, perhaps vintage ranges. The level of detail that you could bring to those older machines would be staggering, and that would also allow a whole different approach really to your gameplay, which we can touch on in a bit. But then what if you went further back as well? We have horses in game, for example. What if you went back further and brought in like the ability to actually leverage them as working implements to strap machines onto the back of a horse if you really wanted to be able to have that whole evolution of farming all the way through from there are lots of people who like to do survival role play series or to that similar effect. You could literally go from a horse drawn machine right up to the biggest machines that cost £500,000 or dollars, whatever, and have everything every stage in between. And the different facets that brings to that game, the different ways that I always talk about how I want to have to think about what my next step is in farming. How are you going to get to that stage? What does that look like? Well, there's a lot more steps you got to think about when you're starting with like a horse than when you're starting with a tractor that's X thousands of pounds. And you can really build that out and flesh that out. But when you get to like the vintage machines, I'm well aware that a lot of our community who play who I learned to drive on those. I learned to drive on a machine that when I was 12 or 13 was about 40 years old. That's the first machine I was trusted to drive on. And and I'm guarantee I'm not the only person who did that. So learning on like having vintage machines with vintage equipment that can then bring in and add in all the way up to the newer stuff there would be just fascinating to me to see how that would be kind of accepted by the communities across the different markets really. And I think that could add so much to it. And heck, a lot of farms still use those older machines now because that's all they have, right? And that's what they need to use. And unfortunately, not everyone can have the shiny new John Deere's, for example. So I'd love to see that. And I think once you start opening that door a little bit, the possibilities for modders are endless. And we see a lot of those already, but I think that it inspires even more, and that snowball effect can be huge. So that's one area that I think would be great to see.
Okay,
The
I
other
like it.
side of it is it's all about, for me, it's that immersion. I keep using that word immersion, and I think the biggest surprise I saw was when we saw precision farming and what that does to your mindset when you're playing the game, and how something as simple as testing the soil on your farm suddenly brings up a whole new menu page, which you have so many more different options and features that you can look into. The work around having section control on sprayers and variable rates on spreaders and sprays and seeders are all things that when I showed my retired dad who was a farmer this, I'm like, he was blown away by what that looked like, and to have this in game, because he talks about that with his friends who are still farming in the pub on a Sunday night. That's what they're talking about, how their machines aren't working because their GPS failed and they couldn't do the variable rate or whatever. That's still common, and that's what he knew. And he's like, wow, that's in game. That's incredible. And we have that ability now, and we get to see what that looks like, because I feel like Farming Simulator is a great way for anybody who has no connection with farming to learn about where the food comes from they have on their table. And it's they can look into that and say, well, yeah, but you can do this and you can add this on here, and this is how you have to grow your crop to get the best that you can to take that to the mill to make your bread that appears on your shelf in your supermarket, that kind of thing. But to have that full immersion in there about all the different nuances that you can enable if you want to play as realistically as possible, but you can disable if you just want to have fun with your friends, and you got everything in between. But to have all of those different features available to you, and I'm sure, again, someone with the precision farming team are probably already thinking about that. But what does that look like to take what we've got and enhance it? I feel like there's so much out there, so many different crop types that we haven't got to yet that could be added in, where you could have those little nuances and variables that you have to grow a standard crop you need to think about. And I think that is going to be huge. And that's really where, again, we it's almost like providing the tools for map makers who are far more intelligent and competent than myself to finish that off and to take that and to run with it, right? And I think that's where this can go. Uh, and I feel like if we do that and provide those tools and provide that foundation, where it goes is endless, really. And I think every version of farm sim that comes out shows us that you, as giants, you don't really necessarily need to do everything. You just need to provide the tools for the community, and they do everything else. You know, you have all the core tools and the abilities to do it, and then the modder sat behind the computer is like, that's great, but I can also add this, and then we that evolves and evolves and evolves, and then we're where we are now with some of the creative teams that we have around there, and that's where this community is fantastic, and that's where it will continue to grow and evolve. And I always think it's, you can never doubt the abilities that we have as a community in terms of finding out how to fix that problem for what they want, and how to solve for this. And I think that the best thing that Giants do is just provide those tools. But when you come back to the gameplay, there, it's, it's about providing like that full range of farming. And I feel like we've certainly, over the last two versions, we've added those, right. We're starting to see more and more diverse gameplay coming in there, and it's building on and it's adding in and providing anybody who has an interest in farming to farm how they want to, and we're just slowly adding a little bit more. So I think that's what I would like to see. You know, whether I'll be proved right or wrong, only time will tell. But what I do find is really fantastic is you Giants always, or I don't know who sends this out, but we always see the roadmap for DLCs, and I love like you put like a little hint on there, and then it's like I sit there and I go, that's Balin, that's got to be Balin, and then it comes out like, nope, wrong again, good, not even close, good,
So
good, good.
what
And then
what way too early and likely wrong predictions do you have for the rest of the year too? What do you think?
well, I mean, I saw one. I'm going to bring up the roadmap so I can remind myself. But let's have a look at the. Where's it gone? There you go. So we've got the Gavil pack. Machines to rule the mountains. You see, I double guessed myself with that.
Okay.
I think that's going to be more along the. Originally, I was going to be thinking it was more like alpine based machinery, like some of the smaller equipment that we had a little bit in the previous expansions. But again, I think it might be something more forestry based that we're going to see coming in there. A different brand is my go-to there. A bonus pack, you're not giving me much to work with there, Kermit. A bonus pack could be anything.
I can guarantee it's going to be a bonus pack. You heard it here first.
Nailed it. So pack 4 is where I'm like, okay, this is my jam. Equipment to improve productivity. So naturally, I think of efficiencies there. One would want to think down the line of enhancements to GPS, but I don't think it's going to be, or even some form of GPS. But I think if I had to, I think it's going to be perhaps an involvement of a new brand that has a lot of, let's say, cultivation or establishment drilling equipment, and it will be something to do with with an inclusion around the precision farming. There would be my bet. But like I say, I've been proved wrong, so that's probably going to be something to do with horses, given my track record of being of my predictions. So whatever I guess, go the other way is my guidance there.
What about the expansion? What are you thinking there? Like,
Oh man, if you gave me, I mean, this is me being a little bit biased here, but if you gave me a strong British map there, then I would be all over the place. Lush and exciting new crops. Exciting new crops to me would, I mean, I don't want to read too much into the symbol that you have on there. I think that's a little
people have been
giveaway.
doing that in chat already today, by the way. I saw people in chat reading into the symbol.
There you go. I think that could be looking at the bigger picture of areas that we may not have any form of either content or exposure in already, I think would be a key. So which markets really do you think about that we don't have anything in there at all? So I would actually really love to see a little bit more of a focus onto perhaps some more Asian style farm in there as well. We don't have rice, for example, and the whole plethora of different equipment that you could bring into a game like that. Something like that would be an exciting crop. Now again, if I'm going down that kind of that avenue, then it's probably going to be something completely different again. Yeah,
I might have to start doing this like every spotlight from now on. Like, you're way too early tinfoil hat predictions from all the guests. That was fun to do. You know, the most fun I have doing that is that like the facial cues for me. Like sometimes I smile, like sometimes it's just
how good your poker face?
Messing with people. Messing with people. It's fun. But yeah, I might have to start throwing this in every week because that was fun to do, Sam. Thanks for indulging me there
And
with those
if it
predictions.
is right, someone better have clipped this up so we can have that ready because
Yeah.
I'm gonna need that back.
It will be on YouTube at least archived for the
Yes.
rest of time unless we take it down. So, I don't see us taking it down. So if it happens in the future, feel free to go back and be like, I told you guys. Watch it, like it'll
You
be
heard it
like
here
10
first.
years from now, and then you'll be like, remember when I told you we were getting that? I
I
was
didn't put a
right.
time frame on it.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Oh man.
100%. Yeah, it's great. Going back to what you said about the expansion map and everything, though, like I think the challenge for Giants now is that like as the game grows like across the world,
Yeah.
it's wild for me now like to have this. As of yesterday, I've now worked on two releases for Giants, 22 and 23, and it's interesting for me because up until now, my experience with the community has been based around the PC and console version. And then when you throw like a new mobile game in there and you see all of a sudden that it's really big in areas of the world that like the other game is either already known in or not even
Yeah.
that well known in, like they're not played as at least like the PC and console version. So like you have a lot of mobile players in India and South America, Asia. Like it is huge there, so it's interesting to connect with those communities. But yeah, like
Cool.
22 was released in more countries than ever before. The game is getting bigger and bigger in countries like Japan, and Brazil, other parts of
Yeah.
South America. Like it continues to grow internationally. So the challenge for us now is like, I make the joke all the time. Like you said, my bias, but I would love it for it to be a UK map, of course. Like we get that a
Yeah.
lot, of course. Like the UK community, they want to see like a Giants map made in the UK. Who knows? Maybe one day. But like that's the challenge now because it's like, yeah, it started like Farming Simulator, of course, in Germany and the surrounding countries. So it's natural for there always to be like kind of early on those types of maps are being made and then started to grow in North America. So now you get almost every version you're getting like a North American map, a European map made from the get go. And then, of course, with 22, for example, the Platinum was a Pacific Northwest map logging, and
Yeah.
it wasn't specifically like US. You could also see it as like partly like Canada as well, like British Columbia,
Definitely.
just North America generally in the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, that's the challenge now. Like more countries play
And
it, and it's natural for those people to say, "Hey, this is how farming's done in our part of the world. We would like to see a map that has this." It's
yeah.
really cool.
And I mean, two things I'll say to that. First thing, what I love about when Giants create their maps is the way that whoever is a part of that map development, they continually grow and stretch their expertise and their abilities and challenge. It's not like, okay, we can build a map, next map we'll build it. I thought the map which came with the Alpine expansion, that was just nuts. The level of detail and the new features that we're bringing into that, it's great to see that change. So if you were to have a map on the wall and you threw a dart at the country somewhere to try and find the next one, like I have no doubt that whatever that area or region that is, it would be conquered in terms of the development of that map, and it would be adding in probably some degrees of it would test the abilities of the map creators, but they'd get it done and they would look incredible when it got there. So it's a real testament to the team members who work on that, because it's great to see that challenge. It's great to add in those new features and those new skills to each version that comes out. So yeah, really looking forward to see what the new map would be in that expansion. But you're right when you speak about all those different markets that open up and all those different players who play on different platforms. I was a bit of a tangent, but I was reading an article the other day about machinery manufacturing, specifically ag machinery, and I only learned the other day that the biggest tractor manufacturer in the world is Mahindra. It's not John Deere, it's not Agco, it's not anyone else, it's Mahindra. And when you start to boil that down, it's like, oh yeah, because think how many the population in India, the number of farmers that must be there, the amount of production that goes on there alone. When you dial into that, it kind of like dwarfs the so-called big manufacturers that we're aware of. So
Right.
it's incredible, and it just shows like how many young farmers, old farmers, or people with a slight interest in farm sim are there who are just waiting to see if the next expansion is their region, is like is bringing crops in that they farm. It's it's exciting to see. Actually, it could be great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm looking forward to the future. I'm looking forward to like just talking about you and the future that you've got going on, farm sim related, the map you're working on, your content as
Mm,
well. It's been great having you on. I feel like you and I could sit here for another hour easily, but we're already 5 minutes
definitely.
over the extra time I add on to the end. So let's wrap things up. Before we go, tell people where they can see your content. It should be pinned to both chats already, so they can find it. But tell them a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah, so YouTube, it is predominantly only YouTube really, but yeah, Simulation for the Nation, or if you SFTN will probably find it as well. I am on Discord too, Twitter, and all of the other Instagrams and socials. I predominantly use Instagram, so if you want to find me on there, hit me up on there, and I'll definitely be able to message you back. But yeah, content coming out over the course of the next few months will be around my map development, and then a little bit when we can of mod reviews at the moment, and then hopefully soon get back into some role plays as well. So that might be accelerated if my map finishes a bit quicker, but we shall see. But yeah, you can find me on YouTube, and I'll always be around in other people's streams. I like to try and hang around and see what's going on.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Looking forward to the
Hmm.
progress of the map and everything else coming from you. Those of you watching, I always try to give you like a, kind of looking ahead of the next few streams. Well, it's pretty easy this time. There are no more like streams at the moment lined up, but there's some reasons behind that. For one, FarmCon's right around the corner. So I'll be over about 3 weeks from Saturday, I think. I fly out. I'll be in Europe until early July, working, and then also FarmCon, of course. Well, FarmCon is work, but it's a different type of work. And so that's one reason. The other reason, though, like we just need to get like kind of a reset. I'm gonna be bringing back the FSL, what we used to call FSL scrims. Now it'll be just like arena mode open lobbies or something like that. That'll be coming back soon. Probably, you should also expect some North American evening time streams more for me in the future. I start these at 8 p.m. in Europe, 2 p.m. Eastern time, so that we can kind of grab a large portion of the audience. But yeah,
Hmm.
going forward, you may see me doing more US evening time streams or weekend streams, even here and there, just due to a shift in my work schedule. So, kind of looking at that as well. So, those will be coming back. The spotlights will continue on as well. I've got like a huge list of guests already to reach out to. It's just about getting those set up. So for now, I can't. I will say not one next week for sure because of the holiday this weekend over here in North America as well. But pretty soon we'll be back with some. We may be able to squeeze a few in before FarmCon, depending on how it goes. Then once we're back from that, we'll be back at it again. Of course, FarmCon is just right around the corner, so
Oh wait.
I've seen like we released 23 yesterday, and like the work doesn't stop, right? It just transitions from one thing to the next. So now 23 is out. The questions have started like, okay, when's that next year two season pass pack being released? So that's around the corner. FarmCon's around the corner. Like there's a whole lot more to come. We're going to be sharing a lot of information with you all at FarmCon. So look forward to that as well. But for now, we got to get running. Keep being awesome. We'll see you next time. And thanks again, Sem, for being here. It was a pleasure chatting with
Thank
you,
you very
buddy.
much.
Bye, everyone. See you
See ya.
next time.